No, so
We already got a count for the head count.
and then
Yes.
so what he did is these 4 feet of RBQs.
Yeah, where you at? What do you know? Big gunner right there.
Not
Solving the world's problems.
So just one little
If it gets bumped in, it's taken.
Money and Schuler. Values every ideas and have questions.
Make your own thing like that.
That's the way the
That's what I'm gonna do.
documenting it, it's nothing that I have in
Yeah, but he wanted to do what he said.
fight.
How are you?
Just grab one right there, Brent. I never said at the table. Just
Don't even, Jerry.
Okay, I just want to return it to you. That is the way that, you know, I'm not there to make decisions for people. I'm there to share and
Church. With that other guy at business.
that's what I'm willing to do.
Now, I
Diane,
It was a blue one.
Are they the I don't
Oh,
that
the
sheet.
blue one was this
I
one.
still see my property.
I had Dave over. Dean's Dave.
Try to, I swear that glue it in. Can't do that if you're doing it with somebody else.
I've done a couple by myself. I've done a couple by myself.
An agenda.
I'll try not to be so pretty good at it. We do.
Did you put yours online, Payne? My picture agenda online.
Diane, are we conserving paper? I don't have the agenda.
I was guessing.
I came in this afternoon. Payne.
Mayor, how are you? Yeah.
I'm away.
So you get out, you're just gonna shred. Just kidding. Listen.
I think we got one.
Private humor and more.
They're coming.
Yeah, we do it at 5.
I know from reading them.
Greg? Oh, you do have a check?
The only one on the team
You need one.
Yeah, please. I didn't know I
Hopefully.
Funny about some. Yeah, I got the.
What's up with this?
We had our 250th
To do a doodle?
committee meeting. This is where this is where I got there.
Yes, sir.
Huh? It's not like
I think so too.
they're
This January.
What's going on?
and they're first on the agenda.
They're just reading.
Somebody's gonna.
I think you need a little.
I'll see if I can print like this.
Boom.
And then you read it and the rest of it tries to make out different.
Can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, we're just getting started here in a minute, and then we'll do a couple of formalities, and then we'll be with you in just a second. Welcome, everyone. We're a little tight in here. We were set up there to do this ahead of time, or then Preston left, and we were kind of relegated to staying in here. So apologize for the tight squeeze. But welcome. Good to have everybody with us tonight. It's a work session, so we won't be making any decisions, and we'll just get right into it. And the first item on our agenda is Mr. Young with Target Hospitality and our Workforce Hub. So, go ahead, sir. We're listening.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council members. Appreciate you having us in audience today, and I appreciate you making accommodations to attend remotely. Good to see everyone. So, as I believe many of you are aware, Target Hospitality recently received approval from Uinta County for a conditional use permit for the temporary workforce housing. They're just outside the city limits on the west side of town. So, the intent is to secure utilities, water and wastewater from the city of Evanston to serve this site. So, the intent here is to talk through the intended requirements, the anticipated requirements for both water and wastewater, and talk about any concerns, limitations, or issues the city may have in providing water and wastewater services for the project.
Okay. I don't know how to go. Just go ahead and tell us what your I guess is that what we need to do? I mean, we're talking about. I know that you were talking about 50 gallons a day per person. Maybe you can go through a little bit of what that's going to look like.
Yeah, that's correct. So anticipated peak occupancy of the workforce hub is approximately 3,500 individuals. Historical averages for our workforce housing facilities average about 50 gallons per day per person, per resident. So that works out to about 175,000 gallons per day of water and wastewater service. Again, as we had indicated previously, planning on utilizing native landscaping, local fixtures to minimize the amount of water that's required. So to really bring that number down, so significantly less than you would have from a typical commercial service. So understanding there are some concerns with the peak demand, the peak AM and PM flows that would be required. So have anticipated having on-site storage for both potable water as well as fire water, understanding some of the pressure flow limitations, given the end of the site where we are there. As well as anticipating to store wastewater to minimize that peak flow to whatever the existing infrastructure already required upgrades could entail. So really, still flowing that average daily flow, but tempering that out over time, so that we're not sending swaths of wastewater in the AM and PM peak periods, or having a negative impact on pressure for the rest of the system at those same few times.
You are for this water storage that you're talking about and the dosing system relative to the wastewater. Those elements of that infrastructure, you are anticipating you will take care of all that. You're just looking for water and sewer service from us. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
I'm curious about the pipe size. Damon, do we have pipes out there that are going to handle all this?
Yeah, currently the water line goes out there to what I'll say the city boundary or the end of the road to nowhere. That was installed in around 2014 in anticipation of what we'd say the fairgrounds at the time. But at that point, after that It does not go to the east. And like all likelihood, these guys would tie onto that. And even in the 2020 water master plan study, there was always a project that was so-called earmarked for that future development out that way. So it's not uncommon or unique to going east.
Okay, so, but the pipes we have right now will accommodate the size, and the sewage, how's our plant on that extra flow that's very, I mean, we've had some upgrades that we've needed, so.
The plant has more than enough capacity to handle that. What they're talking about is storing it on site and releasing it slow through the day so we don't have a big slug all at once. Plant could handle the slug all at once, but the plant's happier when it's in the flow.
And what about chemicals? Is there an issue getting the chemicals that we need because of there's been an issue with chemicals throughout the country because of the Strait of Hormuz closing, and we get a lot of that through that, so.
All of ours is sourced within the United States, and we don't have an issue with it.
Awesome.
But the intent of the sewage itself is, A, we don't want to overload the existing system, but also those early morning and late afternoon showers when the workers arrive. We're trying to slow release that so where it's more maintainable for the guy at the plant, getting more uniform flows throughout the day. That's that logic behind that. So what that looks like, every request I've had is, it's a full engineered set of plans, goes to the DEQ. Partners here locally, I think, are working on some of that. So it's not just going to be a really connect and run type deal. All water will be metered just as if it were inside the limits.
Where's that meter gonna be?
To be determined, it would be prior to their usage for sure.
Are they gonna install the piping from where it's at now to their facility?
Yeah, everything.
That's not gonna be a city project?
No, to my knowledge, they're looking at this as truly a legacy project. What they put in the ground may be inherited by the city in some day, or if anything else, it's there and it's in good engineering and connection philosophy.
That's exactly right, yeah. We'll be incurring all the costs for any infrastructure improvements and upgrades, and then regarding the location of the meter, it still needs to be worked out. The fact that we don't own the property, we'll be leasing the property from Uintah County. Does put a wrinkle in having an easement there. We wouldn't be able to grant an easement to the city, so just need to work out the details of that location. But we anticipate it being there on the property line or near to.
Probably just 1 meter, I'm guessing, 1 meter going to the camp, or?
I assume 1 master meter, and that's not uncommon for mobile home park or anything like that. It's just
like the one going to Bear River or something like that.
Yes.
So I just have how does 50 gallons a day per person compare to, not counting water, for the residents right now? Do we average 50 gallons a day right now per person? Because I don't think I'm looking at our bill when I'm not watering lawns. Of course, that goes up when I'm not watering lawns. I don't work, those minimum numbers. We're kind of, and
I think you guys have had history with that 50 gallon per employee. It's not far off what an average.
That's what I was wondering if they have a peak or below, or what we're.
I think 50 is a fair number. And again,
It's actually,
go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to catch up, Damon. So it's actually a little bit below what you would expect from a standard fixture unit count. That'd be closer to 75, 80 gallons a day for a typical development. So it's slightly less than what you'd have for single family or multi-family residence.
And is that factored in with cooking and, let's say, laundry?
It is indeed. And that's where we get a lot of our efficiencies, to be honest with you, is the fact that we are cooking in bulk. We're not running individual dishwashers, for example, we're using commercial scale, and then laundry for all of the linens and things like that, or again at scale commercials, low flow fixture, efficient type appliances.
What does I'm a little confused on, storing the with the slow release, what does that look like? I mean, what?
So it just been, yeah, for the wastewater, didn't mean to cut you off, sorry.
Yeah, that's what I mean with the wastewater. Is this going to be raw sewage as well?
So wastewater will be raw sewage, so we'll have storage tanks with aerators in there to make sure it doesn't get turned anaerobic or septic. And so we're essentially just a lift station, so whatever we can determine that the outflow flow, maximum outflow will be, have a pump that's sized for that, and then calculate our storage, our volume requirements based on our anticipated inflow minus the maximum outflow over the duration. Will calculate the storage volumes that we need to account for, and then with some sufficient amount of backup and redundancy.
And these
that
are
will also be on
above ground or below ground?
That's to be determined, to be honest with you. It really depends on if this infrastructure wants to stay as a legacy asset for UN County, or if it wants to be removed. So that's to be determined.
How are we gonna charge them for the sewer? Is it gonna be the same setup as it is for our citizens, based off a percentage
It's based off what you use in your water use.
on their water usage, yeah, just like we do with the citizens? Okay.
What kind of agreement? I'm assuming that it's an MOU. What is it that what do you envision that looking like?
So I would really defer to what the city is comfortable with. Either a will serve letter, a memorandum of understanding, whatever is typical there for usage outside of city limits. But just an agreement or will serve letter. Defer to you and Damon on what that language that would look like.
And what is the time? What is the time factor? When, from your perspective, I mean, obviously, probably the sooner the better. But what kind of a time factor are we looking at for that to have that in place?
For the actual agreement, or for the actual? Well, for the agreement, candidly, as soon as possible, just to make sure that we can really clear that wicket, make sure that we don't have any need to make alternate arrangements. Wouldn't anticipate needing water really at bulk until early next year. Still looking at Q1 of 2027 for initial occupancy. We would likely request a temporary construction meter in the meantime. I think the guy, Whitaker Construction, currently has a construction meter on that on one of those hydrants up there. So likely a similar setup for dust control and construction water during the construction phase, and then switching over to the permanent usage after that.
Gotcha. Mark, what kind of chime in here? What do we need to do as far as an agreement? I mean, what's the way to get that started?
I would suggest an MOU very similar to, there are different situations, but very similar to the 2006 Joint Powers Board for Bear River.
Gotcha. Okay.
We have a water usage agreement.
Yeah.
Different circumstances because we're essentially treating Bear River's water and sending it in the pipeline.
Right.
So this is different, but there would be, I would suggest a memorandum of understanding.
And as far as the cost goes, I mean, they are what they are. Those have already been set as far as the fees for the most part, have they not?
Yeah, the rates.
Yeah. So we don't need to worry about any of that. It's all in place. So
The rates have been set,
every year our water rates already. Yeah.
so they're the standard.
Yeah.
What was the, we did a contract not too long ago, I'm having a brain fart. It'll come back to me, but we were doing something with a chemical plant, and there was the issue that we discussed about if something should happen.
You're talking about BPI?
That one, thank you.
Under different name now.
Their discharge is different than sewage discharge. Their product is obviously chemical based. This is no different than when we wash our toilets, and wash our hands in the sink type work.
So that part I understood, but I do think it's good in case something happens that we're dealing with an above ground or a below ground or a something ground sewage system that, that's gonna take, we should have that same type of implementation so our guys aren't, the city isn't accruing fixing stuff, or whatever needs to happen. So we should basically cover our ass in case something
that would
happens.
be written in the MOU.
Yeah.
So, I guess maybe my question, Mark, is what's the best way to get that MOU started? Should they present something to us and then we negotiate back and forth and see or should we, what's your advice there?
Yeah, well, if sounds like the council wants to move forward, take a look at it. Damon and Gordon and I can start working on a draft.
Of course, I want your guys' blessing before I
Absolutely.
throw out a will serve letter.
Yeah.
But, with the design and the fact that it has to go to DEQ for review and connection purposes, that'll be a little warm and fuzzy when it's all said and done.
Yeah.
But, part of this is eventually trying to get that validation to say, yeah, we can provide. And again, hopefully it's a legacy infrastructure that eventually someday somebody's going to use, and whether it's on the county side or the city side, at least we know what we're getting.
That's always been a deterrent for anybody going up there, and if it's there, it's gonna make it a lot more palatable to take over down the road. So I think it's a great thing to have that legacy pipeline,
And
pipes in the ground.
some of the, the forecast in that master plan wasn't just connect, but it talked about the need for tanks and fire suppression and all that stuff. And I think these guys will be considering that throughout the course of this development, so not just solely for a farm.
So I guess the other alternative, if we said no, they'd be drilling wells and putting in septic systems. But I don't,
Be out of our
I don't,
jurisdiction, so.
I think that leads for a lot more chance of ground contamination than using our system, and we have the capacity, so I agree with you. So,
What is this man camp gonna look like exactly? Are you bringing in trailers? Are you gonna build structures?
I apologize, I can bring up a architectural rendering of the site plan. You have to give me a second. I meant to have it at my fingertips, but I got here just a few minutes late. But it's all modular construction, so not trailers, but it is temporary. So fully enclosed, about 500,000 square feet, fully enclosed area, dining facilities, office, recreation, and then dormitory rooms. And if you give me just a minute to pull up my site plan, I will share that with you all.
You're not gonna set any foundations or footings. These are all temporary, right?
That's correct. That's correct. Temporary footings. So there'll be above grade, basically CMU block is what they set on.
Okay.
And then with the tie down, so you have the other modular construction.
in Wyoming, you just wait for a windy day and you just put a cell on them, and then you can move them to Rock Springs when you're ready.
Sorry, this is coming up.
You're fine. So you're fine. Take your time. You're all right. And I've got a couple pictures of the court.
I've seen a site plan. It was more for if you have it, so everybody else here can see what it looks like.
Yeah, pulling it up now, but Blue Beam is, of course, taking its sweet time.
The only question I have, and I think we talked about it earlier, was if there's a disaster, or if there's a water shortage or whatever, then all we will provide for this is fire suppression. Is that correct?
That could be a consideration you guys, hinge on. If times get tough for the community, maybe they're the first off the list. But we're hopefully optimistic Mother Nature will help us this winter, and all will be well. But that is something you can consider putting in the MOU for sure.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. So this is still a conceptual site plan, architectural rendering. It's probably the best drawing to look at. We have actually placed this on the topographic survey. So it's been adjusted slightly on its location. But the main entrance coming in from the road to the future, with the guard shack here in the front. We'll have some temporary parking here for check-in, check-out, office facility, and maintenance laundry facility here. And then these spines are all enclosed. So once you're in the building, you won't need to exit the building at all. We have a dining and kitchen facility here at the back that'll be sized to feed all the residents, as well as a multi-use building here at the front. And this is still conceptual, but the thought here is that this is for recreation. All of our facilities have golf simulators and saunas, and then also a grab and go type indoor meal serving. So think of it like pizza, wings, burgers, chicken sandwiches, that sort of thing. We go in a more casual environment than the actual dining facility there in the back. And then all of these are dorms that will be built out in phases. So the current, and it's anticipated that the central core will be the first phase built out, and then expand both to the east and the west with subsequent phases. And then we also have approximately 100 RV spaces here in the back of the facility.
How much does something like that cost?
A lot, to be honest with you. For new construction, I really don't want to get up from my skis, but in the tens of millions of dollars.
That's it?
Is that all actual pavement, or and that rendering is that?
This is currently anticipated to be aggregate surfacing, with the main drive likely being asphalt coming into the main entrance. That's still being finalized.
Is the parking going to be gravel or is it going to be asphalt?
It's currently anticipated to be gravel.
We as a city have no say in that's all building, layout.
Any questions from the council? Any concerns? Obviously, we can't make a decision on this tonight, but what's your thoughts?
Is that gonna be adequate, with that many people there, having one entrance in and one entrance out? Coming out of that concept there, is that gonna be adequate?
So, short answer is yes. It's anticipated that buses will be utilized to route all the workers to and from the job site every day. Instead of having 3,500 individual trips, we're gonna have approximately 50 coach-style buses that transport the workers to and from the job site every day. So while you will have folks checking in and folks checking out, with daily food deliveries, garbage service, etc., the actual number of trips coming in and out will be significantly less than you would anticipate for a development of this size. The fact is, most people come, they park, and they stay. They'll come into town a couple times a week to go grab some stuff for their room, or go to movies, or just get eat at one of the restaurants in town. But you won't have these huge peak AM and PM trips. And actually, we are currently engaging a firm for a traffic impact assessment to analyze the impacts at the corner of Bear River Drive there and the interstate.
Okay, you had a question.
Sure. Has the city talked about or discussed the impact on our water supply? What kind of percentage of our water supplies out of Sulphur Creek? How much are we going to be using for this facility relative to how much we have?
Relative to how much we have, how much we produce every day, this is very minimal.
Like 1%, 10%?
170 gallons a day is really, it sounds like a lot, but it's truly not. We're using what, 6 or 7?
Right now today we're at 6.2 million.
6.2 million gallons just today. So I don't think I think we've got, and I've said it before, our capacities both with water treatment and wastewater treatment historically were planned to be far greater than what they are, and so I think we're in more than a good shape to provide these services. And let's be honest, they're going to pay for it. We're going to send them a water bill, and we're going to get some some revenue from
Yeah, that water treatment plant's,
that you might have, start the discussion, your thoughts on funding a position. Chief, we kind of went back and forth on would that be more of a public works or, somebody on the force, and I think the idea would be best suited on the force because Chief could help us train that person up. That also relieves a lot of the officers' current role right now that takes that enforcement off because we've got a dedicated code enforcement person. And I think it'll be a full-time job in the beginning. However, over time, I think that would actually slow down. However, we do have an extra position that would support on the patrol or whatever that might look like. That's above my pay grade. So any thoughts?
You mentioned on the onset that you have some funds in essence to kind of get this. What does that look like? What is that? How do you anticipate that working?
So URA would actually fund a new position and we would work, and that's part of the future discussion, is that way of a loan. That's from the URA funds that we've actually got set aside right now, that we've got the money, and we anticipate about $150,000 for a position. That's all soft cost, hard cost benefit package. They get an adequate person for that. Over time, I would like to see that next year built into the city's budget and with a small repayment plan to URA so that we're not just out that money. And however, we've kickstarted that opportunity to create that position within the city.
So you anticipate this being a city employee, not a URA employee? This
Correct.
A city employee, you guys, and then in essence we would pay you back
for the original upfront monies today, right? Because we look at it as an urgent need within the city because of the transition that we've got with the influx of people that we're going to have in our community, and a lot of the bigger projects in the area that are being talked of right now from a housing, economic development, and investment into businesses into our community, to where it is an urgent thing. I think I did hear a number of 4 to 5 months to train that person up to be in that position if it went on the law enforcement side of the house.
I guess on the onset, I'll just jump right in here and say there are some concerns to that for me, because obviously let's say you give us $150,000 for us to hire someone with, which is great, but then we hire that individual and we move forward, and then next year the budget comes around and we have to fund the position again. I say we would fund the position again. I would anticipate anyway, but then we would need to figure out a way to repay you. So now we've just doubled next year's budget for this position to get. So I get that. I'm just saying that's some of the things that we need to take into consideration. I will also say that we have in the last couple of months, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, last several weeks, I have had discussions with Chief Ranish about additional officers, and I guess what we would have to do is figure out where this individual would best be placed. If that's police department, if that's public works, if that's planning and engineering, if that's what it might be. And I don't know, Chief, chime in here.
I said I'd probably happy to take on the position to begin with and train the position, and I've talked to Mark, and this is gonna, I don't want to open a can of worms, more discussion, but I don't know if I really like everything being criminal. Okay, right now our nuisances carry jail sentences with it. So if we charge someone, they have a right to a jury trial. The standard of proof is proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And if we take jail off the table, then you don't have a jury trial. If you take the criminal off the table and make it civil, your preponderance of the evidence, So plus, I don't know how I feel about an officer. I don't think we always need a badge and a gun going to everyone's house telling them to mow their grass and cut their weeds. It stirs people's emotions when you pull somebody over. Even when I get pulled over, my heart rate goes up. And when an officer shows up at your house, the first question is he here to tell me that one of my loved ones is dead? Or why is this officer at my house? So I have a lot of mixed feelings about the whole thing, but I'm ultimately a big believer in the broken windows theory. I believe a clean community reduces crime. And I believe under the whole community policing ideology, it's not just our job, it's everybody's job, and we all need to work together as partners to accomplish what we need to do.
Would that fall under like the CSO? Your community, would that fall under like community service officer?
Well, if we took it on, yeah, it would fall under a community service officer position. But like I prefer to have someone stressed down, not in, maybe a City of Evanston plaque on the side of a white car, and a person wearing a polo that says City of Evanston. If we're going to tell people, we're very good at telling people don't do this, don't do that, don't drive drunk, don't speed. But it gets a little bit harder to tell people you now have to do this, you have to do that, and it's a completely different. I feel like everything's a completely different approach.
I don't think that.
Just a second, your thought though. I agree with it being a civil instead of criminal. I think the assessment of fines and stuff is easier for us to control the financial side of that through a civil side versus criminals. I don't disagree with that approach at all, and that would be a ordinance change. I believe that would relatively be a simple lift.
Whatever we did would require an ordinance. Well, I guess that's not fair. But to talk about what Chief is talking about would require an ordinance change.
And
You had some.
I did, and I think there's basically three things to consider. There's the code enforcement, building codes. That currently resides in planning and engineering, or engineering and planning, sorry. And then there's a zoning code enforcement, and that is handled primarily through Mr. Jacobson, and then we work together for zoning enforcement. And then you have the nuisance abatement. So there are three. They're all different, but those are the components of basically code enforcement. So what I think he's talking about, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you've got to have somebody not necessarily be a law enforcement officer for those, but they have to have access to or training in code enforcement for building codes, nuisance, and then the zoning issues. So the way we do it now is Mr. Jacobson and I will work together, Mr. Hergert and I will work together, and then primarily with PD on nuisance enforcements, it's been Lieutenant Pearson. Primarily, that's my contact. So, I work with him, and it's a lot of, do we want somebody at the lieutenant level being involved in code enforcement?
Yeah.
And but there's three things to take into consideration.
It seems to me that we've probably reached a point where we need to think about doing something this way. Maybe we're late to the game. Maybe that's it looks to me like.
What couldn't we do an individual that's essentially cross-trained, someone that has the training that's from the police department, has from public works and whatever else, and works with all three entities. We have impact funds that said we needed to add an officer. Would that be something we could use impact funds to add that as far as pay for it?
What about doing because people aren't used to, I like that idea, but throwing another one on the table. Kind of a 3 strikes as we start integrating the ordinances, because it's going to ruffle feathers because people have had shitting along for God knows how long. So we have it with we have the main person that's trained with public works, but if they fail to comply with three strikes, then we get an officer. So that way we wouldn't necessarily.
I definitely don't think they need to show up in an officer's outfit. They need a polo and a
if they've not done it
like
3 times.
But then you get the backup.
Yeah, then you get we're serious guys, come on, let's a little more nice.
You could drive around town and know where there's houses that might have some things going on that shouldn't be. I think a code enforcement officer, if it sits on the public works, if they are going to serve that particular house, it would be very simple to be backed up by an officer at the same time. I want to address the mayor's concern about the budget and going back. That when we look at that, you're spot on. That would have to be built into the budget, and that would compound over the next 10 years. The idea is the economic development side that comes along with the beautification of the city. Hopefully, it is going to be, with everything else we've got going on with the 2050 plan, economic development, housing initiatives, all that the cost is going to be very inexpensive compared to what the new tax assessment would be in even a period in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, both of those components need to be factored into, you know, and I guess I was taking it to say, you know, you're in essence making us a generous offer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we have to figure out how to, you know, if there's gonna be the component to, you know, to repay that at something, however fast or slow that is.
I love your consideration
We've
for
got-
the next mayor, not just kicking the butt.
You gotta figure out how to factor all that in so that we,
I got it.
so that we, you know, so, yeah, I'm not disagreeing with anything.
We're on the same page.
No, and I like this. You start with a coordinated education first effort, educating the public, and also looking at our own back door of our own city properties, cleaning them up, setting the example. As is written in this, I know I had a son-in-law that worked for Sugar City, and he was on the water department also, and he was the code enforcement officer because nobody else wanted to do it. But he didn't care. He went out and did it, and you know, you had to be the bad guy once in a while.
Yeah.
But you can be a bad guy and still be nice to people.
Absolutely, and I don't mind being on the URE board and being the thorn in your side and us taking the heat on this. You know, that I'm completely okay. And
My biggest concern is I don't like touching the police force at all. We have a hard enough time finding and training. And with the man camp coming in, that is going to put a serious tax. They can claim all they want that they're going to have all these wonderful spas and saunas, and they're going to have their golf simulators. But they also said they were going to be dry. And the people that are coming there are not from here. They're all transients, and they're moving from data center to data center. This is identical to the oil boom that happened here in the 80s. And our police department's job is to, because their salaries are paid by the people here to protect them, not the perspective of people that may or may not be here. So with it, I'm all for it, and I love the idea of doing it, but I'm pretty protective of these guys because we don't have enough of them, and we're going to come up with the crunch of not having enough of them.
Well, that's
Henry,
the
you
intent.
saw that too, right, during the boom, and we don't know what we're anticipating. So if we can move, that's why I was like public works with a backup, then we can share that load because, you know, 3,800, mostly men. If it were women, I wouldn't worry. But it's mostly men. They're paid a lot. They're not from here. And they're gonna do what they're gonna do.
When I lived in Rock Springs, the person that handled the nuisance ordinance was a city employee, was not part of the police department. But I am sure, and you can check with other cities how they do it, because I know where I lived was kind of in the old part of town. I bought a house there, and the neighbor next to me was a mess, and I called the nuisance order, and they put a note on their door, and things did eventually get cleaned up. But I'm not sure how the police were involved or if they were involved, but you can check with other cities as to how they do it. But I think it's about time, because there's trees dying all over town that people won't water downtown.
the idea of this discussion is truly the opportunity for the city to get ahead of it.
It seems to me that the best way to move forward with this is to put our heads together between the police department and the attorney's office, public works, everybody, and just kind of figure out where does this individual need to, what does the genesis need to be for this individual, and where is the landing spot for this individual, and see how it goes.
You need to bring the fire department in on it.
So my concern is, however we do it, we have a lot of owners and property owners that you guys are talking about that aren't in Evanston. the property owners that are outside. So as we look at this, we need to make sure that we're including how we're contacting. And so my first thought as we talk about this is getting communication out to people and to let people know that, okay, this has slid for the last ever how many years. It is now time that we are now taking this serious.
Yeah.
I mean, there's cities, if you go down to Utah, there's certain cities that if you're on Main Street, you're held to a certain standard because you go through these little towns. It's part of their code, and you go, wow, this is a kind of a neat little town. I've never gone off the road to see what it looks like on the other streets. They could look like crap, but if we have, as you look at that, I think as simple as allowing discussion, that we have somebody that says, you know what, we really are. And then there's things like the day of service is coming up in September. We're talking about that. Was involved in that a little bit. And what they want to do this year, instead of doing a youth club program again, they want to focus on the alleyways, because there's so many issues with the alleyways, and getting everybody together to do that. So there's things that we can hold the community together and work together. I think the simple thing is that somebody official says, hey, you know what, we're really taking this serious now, and I think that would take care of 80% of the problem. You know, Pareto principle, 80-20 rule would probably take care of 80% of the problem.
Yeah, I agree that, you know, just because they don't live here doesn't give them a pass on their property on that. And I think it's important that URA starts bigger and better communication with the city in these discussions and partnership, because we do have the statutory authority to really put the hammer down on some of these properties from the URA's perspective. And so I think, you know, the partnership that we can create, the bigger discussions, I want to hold true to what we said we were going to do and do what we say within 30 days. I'd love to see us have that discussion in the next 2 weeks, do a deeper dive and identifying that. I'm not sure if the map, the contingent original map that we want to focus on, was part of the packet. Did that go out also?
No, I didn't see it.
Okay, and I'll make sure it gets circulated, but you can see how small the original area is that we want to make a big focus on. It is really the downtown, and then in addition to this map, I do the thoroughfares in and out of the city. Would be our primary focus, and so I guess the discussion within mayor and council members would be identifying a point person on behalf of the city to lead these discussions, that we can get something on the books and move an initiative forward.
Okay, let us think through that, and I think everybody's in agreement that we need to head that direction sometime.
Can I say something as a citizen? One of the things I think that you all need to also be aware of is businesses, yes, they need to comply with these 100%. But there's a lot of individual property owners, older people, maybe they don't have the resources to pull off their shrubs. Maybe they don't, you know, their lawnmower's broke and they can't get it done or whatever. We do a lot of community service with the place that I work, and we've done a lot. But I think Chief Ronish is on when he said community service officer, because if you could get, instead of calling it a nuisance officer or a code enforcer, those sound mean and harsh. Let's get a community service organizer, right? And try to get neighbors helping each other raise their barns again, right? Get over and help. Get a group of people in community. There's always kids that need community service hours, always. Get them involved in this, and like you said, educate the public. Start in the schools. You would not believe the difference it has made in the culture of my school, having our students do community service every 20 days. Yeah. They feel like they belong here. It's not, I live in Evanston, I can't wait to get out. It's more like, this is my town. I am part of this town. People know me. Wow, I'm in the paper. Look at this beautiful sign we made for hypoxia, right? I mean, all those things really mean a lot to the next generation. Yep. So instead of just slapping somebody's hand, yelling at them or giving them a fine, clean it up or else, help each other.
It's like where I started, that sense of community and education and help thy neighbor, and that is the concept that we want to roll this out. However, my only disagreement with what you said is that position can be called whatever it needs to. However, it does need to come with the authority, because not all people are in that same position. And so there does need to be some statutory ordinance that gives authority to that same person. It can't just be a good citizen.
Well, no, but not always just give fines, also offer help.
The current ordinance does lay it out in chapter 14 of what a warning looks like, what the first initial contact, what the letter states. So there's a progression to get to the point of slapping the hand or feet, and it is laid out in current ordinance.
Maybe the warning comes with a flyer of
offer
resources that they can call
Absolutely.
and reach out to.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
Mayor's gonna bring his goats. Me and Dave are going.
There we go.
We're working on a goat ordinance now.
Are you now? Legalizing.
If I go
City
check
limits.
bring it just for cleanup,
Love it.
temporary.
Love it.
They do a good job.
When they were cleaning up the side, they sparked a fire, and I'm like, goats don't spark fires.
Mayor, Councilman, I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.
Give us a little
Thank you
time
for
today,
coming.
and we'll finish this discussion. Thank you.
We'll start doing some thinking on it.
Get back to
Figure out
us.
what's the best way to go
All right.
about it. So
Okay.
good information.
And I think whatever you guys decide moving forward, we want to be a part of that education
Appreciate that.
campaign and
Yeah.
see how we can help.
Beautiful.
So
I'd like to see you on the educational side, see what it's gonna look like. Present something to us that we can take a look at of what we're going to present to the public.
Yeah. My idea on that would be really a campaign on giving a sense of community. People taking ownership and pride, in their neighbor's property along with their, the city streets. And that's going back to the context and where this came from. It was giving the city the opportunity to get out ahead of this, right? Because the city has some ownership in some of the properties and the eyesores and things that are out there. It's hard to go to the community and put the hammer down or slap a hand when the city is not doing their part. And so this is a part of the discussion would be get out ahead of it, lead by example, take leadership, and then the sense of community would be, brought with pride would be really the educational portion of that. And education on what Chapter 19 looks like, because this is a big focus on the nuisance side. I love Mark's idea of bringing the code enforcement into it in the 3-tier and not just a nuisance focus. I think if we're doing it, we do it all the way and lead from the front.
So I have a comment. So I talked to a fellow a couple weeks ago. He has 3 gigantic trees in this little tiny strip with grass in it. And his neighbor has 1 gigantic tree. One, in a windstorm, a big branch broke off from the neighbor's tree and landed on his fence. And the tree is hollow. I guess some raccoons live in there. But he can't afford to get those trees taken care of. He asked somebody about it, and it was $7,000 a tree. And the trees are way bigger than his house, but we would have to have some sort of help because he can't afford $7,000.
In this community, my experience, there's more than enough people that are willing to help and support with a simple ask. If people know what the need is, you'd be surprised on how people step up and exchange maybe some firewood or
he
some
already
other things
asked
along.
the city if they had help, and he was told that the tree has to have dead leaves, not green leaves on it. Well, it's got green leaves on it, but it is they're hollow. So
Yeah, I think that bring that up in discussion or give the person's my information, and I'll find a resource for them.
okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell you where it is.
Okay.
My trees.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank
My
you.
trees.
10,000.
This is
The gold standard. The gold
I
standard.
have some really good
That's standard in the neighborhood. That's our agenda. We're done.
I don't know.
All that's great for
You got 20 minutes to get to the trip.